everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard dance charts in immaculate detail with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. So yeah, unfortunately the quality really died off after last week, where I was expecting there would be at least a little bit of interesting stuff happening, but given that pretty much everything that was awesome from last week either lost out or died off completely with a few exceptions, otherwise it just felt very unfortunate that what replaced them was not particularly good or interesting. I mean, it's not really bad by any means, but the lack of interest here really shined through for me, and unfortunately the quality was not anywhere near as good, which was to be expected, but still underwhelming in a lot of ways. Which is odd, because Hot Dance at least saw some exciting movements that could be interesting later on, like Dracula by Tame Impala and Jenny still at number 1, although it is finally losing out on radio, and given that streaming has been a bit weaker than everyone expected, it's probably going to be on its way out naturally pretty soon, although it is doing remarkably well, and it's just really telling that there's next to no competition at all. For example, Another Drink by Marshmello and Kelsey Ballerini, which actually jumped up on the Hot 100 currently at number 2, but has no radio support to speak of. Again, I think it's really telling that Kelsey Ballerini isn't getting any backing despite the fact that she has a song that could easily work on country radio. I don't like the song, but I at least would like to see it at least have some challenge there. At least it thankfully keeps No Broke Boys by Disco Lines and Tinashe from doing much of anything at number 3, and if there's a song I expect will start falling finally soon, it's probably going to be this one, especially considering the streaming is on its way out naturally, which takes us to a jump that I don't think anyone saw coming, as it has the legs to actually be a genuine hit in the making. Te Estoy Correteando by Latin Mafia and Fred Again, actually up to number 4, where this is now Fred Again's highest peaking song in the history of Hot Dance, all for a song that was a completely unexpected pivot for him and a much deeper cut on the album. And I think it's really important to note just how huge the momentum for this has gotten, where the streaming is still going up as I'm recording this, where it has the potential to get even higher soon, as it looks like people are fully behind this. And honestly, that's kind of interesting that a Cumbia song is actually able to get that much momentum nowadays. And quite frankly, it means that No Broke Boys' chances of lasting past 78 weeks are looking slimmer and slimmer, and I think we'd all be better off for it. This is a genuinely good song. I really hope it continues to go up. It's kind of interesting how well the album's actually stuck around. Sadly though, it didn't really knock down Take Me by Danny at number 5, which actually gained a bit of momentum on streaming and seems to be actually rebounding, although I do not see it getting anywhere near as big as it used to. Really, it only held its position because Talk to You by Another featuring 54 Ultra is exiting naturally at number 6. Had a really remarkable run. I'm really happy it managed to hit the top 5 and actually hit a new peak later on in its run, and it's actually got a lot of staying power, so it's probably going to be just fine. It's a great track. Really am glad that it had the run it did. Hell, I can see it actually falling beneath Free Your Mind by Prosper and Clooney at number 7, which is actually still holding nicely and doesn't seem like it's slowing down anytime soon. Streaming's behind it. This could be a late run again. There's also, however, the big return from Repeated by Martin Garrix and Ed Sheeran at number 8, where it looks like the streaming is holding pretty nicely, but more importantly, there is a big pop radio push behind this, and it's actually doing remarkably well there. And given the sound of the song and the fact that it's an easy sell there, given Ed Sheeran's name, I'm not really going to complain. It's a solid track, and I'm happy it's actually sticking around. And more importantly, it continues to knock down Jamaican Bam Bam by Hugo and Salto to number 9, just 2 spots away from being knocked into recurrency, and I can only hope this pile of garbage goes away soon. And finally, there's Meant to Be by Cunt Sniffer at number 10. And given that the Scene-Core scene has had no signs of actually capitalizing on this momentum, with both this and Misery starting to fall off pretty fast, and given the, let's just say, not particularly good look for both of these acts, and really I'm just disappointed that they're actually getting momentum with the allegations around them, yeah, this song's moment might be over, and I'm honestly kind of okay with that. Anyways, on a much better note outside the top 10, and I can't really complain about the notable exits this week. Yes, it sucks that the 2 songs I genuinely love that debuted last week just didn't last here outside of Fred Again and Latin Mafia, but when they're taking out both Heavenly Jumpstyle by 20 Selwicks and Innocence and Paparazzi by Alximo, both of which overperformed all expectations and will probably probably end up making the top 100 anyways as good songs. Yeah, not really going to complain about these leaving. They had pretty solid runs. Hell, the only fall of notes here is actually Overthrow by Latin Mafia and Fred Again at 22. And again, I think it's really telling just how well this album has had some staying power. This could potentially actually make the top 100 if it actually sticks around another week. And I wouldn't really complain about that. More on this album later on. I mean, thank God that this is way more dominant in the conversation because the 3 returns we got this week are fucking abysmal. The best is All the Time by John Summit, The Chainsmokers, and Ilse at 20. And that's only because the other 2 are blatant AI songs, with The Jawn by Jerry at 23 and Like a Prayer by Josh Fowers at 21. I can only hope now that streaming platforms are actually being obliged to make labels for AI music that this will be last-ditch runs that will not last, and considering that a lot of people are anti-AI and these sorts of songs do not get much success when they're actually properly revealed as such, I expect both of these will not have much staying power in a couple of weeks, especially considering that they're rolling this out in September. Hopefully the end of this fucking awful trend. This stuff needs to die. Thank God that the 2 major jumps are both legit excellent, and I'm really happy they're sticking around, with Tesla by Fix Up Boy rebounding to 18, along with Addiction by Lanone and Essentia at 19. Both songs I thought would not have much staying power at all, but actually showing signs of sticking around and making the year-end list too, which, considering both are excellent tracks, I think that's a net win. I'm not really going to complain. But as I said earlier, the Latin Mafia and Fred Again album had surprisingly decent staying power, which leads us nicely into our only debut this week, being number 25, Quiereme by Latin Mafia, Fred Again, and Baby. It always surprises me when album bombs actually end up gaining momentum after the first full week of impact, especially on genre charts where it's actually a lot harder to do than you'd expect. Seriously, there's very few on Hot Dance that I can remember actually gaining off of their debuts at all, and in this case it looks like some of them actually did, with this being a late bloomer debut that managed to hit on the second week of the album's impact. Just a shame it's not really one of my favorites from the album. I mean, it's pretty good. I do like the faster chiptune adjacent hardcore groove here that actually has a lot of momentum and punch to it, especially when you have both Latin Mafia and Bizu, who deliver very distinct vocal styles that actually flow over this beat quite nicely. Latin Mafia in particular sounding really natural on this. I'm honestly surprised they haven't gone down a faster synth pop adjacent route like this in a while, but between how unstable the groove gets, especially with the trap switch at the end that doesn't really fully work for me, as well as the whole song being a bit too much for me, as it feels like it's going at full speed with no real chances to let the groove or momentum calm down a little bit. Yeah, it's not exactly one that I return to in the same way as some of the other songs on the album. Hell, both songs that charted last week I prefer over this. I mean, it's a good track, I do like it, but I kind of wish there were other songs from the album that charted over this instead. Pretty good, not great. Now, Dance Pop had, well, nothing. Only one debut this entire week, and it only caused the movements to barely change at all, with the most notable movement in either direction being 2 spots. Again, it's revealing how much stagnation is on this chart, and quite frankly, Billboard, you don't need this around anymore. Just merge them back. You'd make your lives way easier. Hell, there's that one debut that I've actually already covered a specific version of it that ended up charting briefly previously, but this version actually charted on its own, being number 9, Love Sensation by Madonna and Kylie Minogue. Yeah, this one is going to be pretty short in terms of a review, as really the only distinct elements from this are having Kylie Minogue delivering a guest verse, which honestly is pretty cool and long overdue for 2 legends of dance pop to actually cross together here, and the groove for some reason just completely removing a lot of the elements that I liked from the original in favor of a really flat and generic house beat that doesn't stand out at all. The piano feels weirdly mixed further back in the mix where there's not really much melody to work off, and it feels way too smothered. ballad, and the vocals dominate more over an instrumental that feels very barren and empty now. It's kind of bizarre to me why they changed the instrumental for this remix at all. I mean, at least Kylie Minogue sounds good on this, but otherwise it's not really a remix that I have any use for when the original track does things way better and doesn't sacrifice the production to get there. And honestly, it feels very inessential. Pretty decent for what it is, but as a remix of this song, it's really underwhelming. You could probably skip it. Now on Mediabase, sadly not really huge on what I have to cover this week, but there's at least some interesting movements to make up for it. I'll take that. Shame it's all in service to fucking Sad Girls by BB Rexa and David Guetta at number 1. Once again proving that Ray was so fucking scared to not let a song from these two succeed that it has to end up pushing this to the very top of the charts, despite no one caring about this song. And if you want proof, the Hot Dance run was fucking abysmal. Again, there's no reason this mediocre at best song should be sticking around. And even worse is what's likely to hit number 1 next week, being Moving to the Sun by Hugel, Imal Angel and Alternator number 2. Which, man, talk about a good song at the core that's being utterly ruined by some horrible stuff around it, including the AI music video with Alternator in it, which, my god, if you want a way to destroy your legacy, for me, that is one way to do it. And quite frankly, we can do so much better than enabling a song that was assisted quite considerably with AI. I mean, seriously, Hugel has that song with David Guetta called Shine, that I've already reviewed and probably could end up getting pushed on this format a little bit more, but instead they're choosing to outright ignore it for some reason. Why? At least we've got Free Your Mind by Prosper and Clooney to add some welcome quality at number 3. And man, talk about a late run with this one that's actually doing decently well. I can see this actually getting to the top. Warm is proving that the radio is really behind it. Hell, there's also Give Me Love by Lazewo at number 4, which is showing consistent upwards momentum still. I'm kind of amazed they're pushing it this long, but given how 3am just lingered around way too long for its own good, I couldn't really say I'm that surprised by that. I'm not going to complain in this case either. There's also Serotonin by James Hype at number 5, which is slowly gaining in its own rights. Not enough to truly challenge, but the run it's having is pretty solid. Hell, I'd say the same thing about Like a Child by Armin van Buuren and RG featuring Marlo Rex at number 6. Hey guys, can you please push this to warm right now? It'd actually do pretty well. There's no reason why it isn't there at this point. But anyways, as expected, we got Meet Again by Cascade, Leighton Giordani and Natalie Jane collapsing off the number 1 down to number 7. Not really surprising given how long it took to get there, and honestly, if they could push that new single with Bunts, that would be fantastic. It's an easy sell here. Then there's In Your Eyes by Alesso on One Republic at number 8, which doesn't really have a ton of notes, but it is holding pretty steady, which is ideal. It's a good song. Certainly more preferable to the new arrival into the top 10 for Lovers on the Dance Floor by Blondish featuring Curtis Wells at number 9. And while I do get why it's here because it's an easy sell for radio, and Blondish did come off of Never Walk Alone, which was a pretty damn good song and actually became a decent hit for her, given everything that she's been saying that's bordered on some of the most questionable stuff that a mainstream producer can say, I have no reason to ever give her any sort of support at this point, and this song is not good enough to justify it. There's no reason it should be here. Thank God that ending all of this is repeated by Martin Garrix and Ed Sheeran at number 10, a really calm, pleasant and normal song that's been doing quite well and is on the rise nicely and is actually damn good. That's been really needed this year. We could have some conventionally normal songs that are actually good. But on to the fall-offs, and wow, there's only one here that's worth noting that will actually make the year-end list. Unfortunately being Getaway by Kungs and Boys Noise. Gross. I did not want this to actually be the Kung song that's stuck around. It's not good. But the rest feel like they're surprisingly likely to miss, being Sacrifice by Audien and Sam Harper, which surprisingly didn't do as well as I expected, alongside Phoenix by Marshmello and Portugal the Man, which honestly as a We Are The People ripoff, I'm surprised it didn't actually stick around. People may be as sick of it as I am. Hell, there's also Feeling Alive by The Hotel Lobby and F Hero, thankfully underperforming, as well as Crazy Day by Mavie Monroe, a song that gets pushed hard into the top 20 by a complete no-namer that absolutely blows, and after 2 weeks it immediately gets ditched. One of the highest peaks for any song that's fallen right off of its peak, and it's for this crap. Good riddance. But the falls are not really all that surprising or and honestly all that notable, to be honest. Love Sensation by Madonna ironically fell in the week of the remix impact down to 15 thanks to Dance Tyria taking over. Don't Worry Baby by Dom Dollar and Tigger hit 17 because the song is terrible and people could not care less about it. Don't Wanna Go Home by Medusa and Henry Chamomile lost to 18 because, well, Silence is finally getting a push in the US, so I'm not really surprised here. Echo by the Chainsmokers and Oh Sora only a little hit down to 26 because, well, this hit number 1 weeks ago. I'm surprised it's still here. And sadly, One More Sunday by Piggin is down to 34 because this sort of low-key house music that's not by Oscar Medkay just doesn't really have that level of draw. Shame there, I like this one a lot. But thankfully, things look like they're actually getting a bit better in our jumps, as well as, well, the comeback of Silence by Medusa and Rani at 40. Hopefully, with it returning this high, it might actually have a proper run. That would be great. I'm not going to complain. Hell, given how intense the jumps are, it kind of surprises me that Feel Again by Sony Fodera jumped off its return last week to 27. Is it actually going to get a proper run now? Hell, I have similar questions about some of the late jumps like Masquerade by Paul Oakenfold featuring 2 Lots at 25, or Don't Lose Your Head by Tiesto and Olivia Sebastianelli at 32, although in that last case, I cannot complain about that sticking around. Or further down, you've got the songs that haven't really caught on much at all, like My Place by Josh Baker and Poppy Bascom at 43. Finally, that leaves some debuts last week, like Party Time by Tigger, Chris Lake and Arctic at 44, Caught in the Fire by GL at 41, that's welcome, and World Away by Griffin, Bunt and Inners at 23. Again, all great songs, I'm not going to complain, and in that last case, it proves that Bunt's going to stick around. Cascade, this is your moment now. And finally, we've got Dance Tyria by Madonna at 16, along with Woman by Peggy Go and Abra Star at 12. Again, both good to greats. These are a net win for the women here, and they're definitely welcome for me. And of our 4 debuts this week, 2 of which I've covered, and I'm kind of okay with both of these, with the most unsurprising being Good Girl by Clooney Prosper and Tristan Henry at 46. This is probably going to end up being a pretty decent hit, and it's a decent song. But more surprising for me was Make You Fight by Chris Lake and A-Trip at 50 now, especially with Chris Lake charting another song with Tigger that's actually doing better than this. And considering that this fell off Warm months ago, I'm kind of surprised that they're still pushing this in the US. Although I'm not really going to complain because it's one of Chris Lake's best later period songs. I wouldn't mind if it actually stuck around, but that left 2 other songs that I was unfortunately a lot less enthusiastic about. Unfortunately, starting with number 49, Perfume by Shab.
Under the moon, I wanna shine like a new Ferrari. I get you high on my perfume.
Man, talk about an artist who I've completely lost all interest in actually caring about since her breakthrough. And for those who missed it, I reviewed Shab's big breakthrough single Skin and Bones last year and really saw a lot of potential in it, especially with the production. She wasn't a great singer, mind you, but honestly the groove was so damn nice there that the original showed a lot of potential that was elevated by a really damn good remix by Damon Sharp, and even if it did unfortunately miss the year-end list, it did a lot better than I expected. That being said, her follow-up single with Preston Harris called It's On You, which actually ended up charting during the period where I wasn't talking about this chart, I didn't get to review it, and yeah, wow, I did not miss much. This really did not work for me. The Afro House groove had some knock to it, but Preston Harris and Shab have next to no chemistry here, not helped by some horrible vocal mixing that completely destroys the atmosphere in record time. It's a collaboration that did next to nothing on this chart, and honestly I can't complain, it's not good. But now she's back solo with her 3rd charting song in the past year. I was at least hoping this would be a bounce back for me, and okay, look, I want to be nice because I can tell with the Arabic melodies and the more traditional groove behind everything, it's really going back to her Persian roots. Might hit more for her and seem like something she actually wanted to make. I can absolutely see why. But that being said, I don't really care for this much at all, and honestly I kind of find this pretty bad too. Shab is not exactly all that expressive of a singer, and even on a groove that puts more focus on her sexual side, she just does not have the presence or charisma to make this work. And when the bass just overpowers the mix with barely any melody on the hook outside of the vocals, especially transitioning into the vocal chops, which are incredibly lazy and one note even by her standards, yeah, this production doesn't do much of anything for me either. I get why she went down this route again, with her Persian roots, it makes sense, but I just do not care much for it. Overall, it just feels like another example of an act wasting their potential on a shoestring budget and not pulling it together in their final product. So yeah, this isn't very good. You can skip it. Number 35, Ain't Going Back by Isabella Francisco.
And we ain't going back. You let the tables turn, baby, stay on the track. There is fire in the blood, and we ain't going back. We ain't going back.
Okay, seriously, at this point I get that in modern times there's many ways to get mainstream traffic, and for some really small names, maybe they feel the need that a sudden radio push is what they need to actually get an audience, but come the fuck on. This is the trend now at this point of pushing literal no-namers with mediocre at best songs with low budgets for only 2 weeks, and then immediately ditching them after they hit the top 20. It's a trend that I'm getting actively sick of, and the long term, it's just not really gonna do much to help these artists besides expose their low quality production to more people. That's not a recipe for success. So into the newest case of this with Isabella Francisco, who as of recording this has under 600 monthly listeners, with this song from June of this year having under 4,000 streams, and it's only her second ever song on DSPs, her first one coming out in 2025. If this isn't blatantly obvious that dance radio favors cheap label deals and money over any sort of credibility, I don't know what is, especially when the song is not particularly good either. Surprise! I actually don't mind some of the production here where there's this thick layer of bass that works nicely as the backdrop. There's some atmosphere here which at least gives it a little bit of an edge over Crazy Day in that department, but the problem is that we're in 2026 and people are still trying to make slap house happen. This is a sound that's not aged well, and trying to replicate it with the slower plodding tempo and suffocating mix just doesn't work at this point, especially with those random farty trumpet sims on the verses that sound terrible. But behind all that is Isabella's vocals, who, oh my god, I'm sorry, she just does not sound good at all here. The autotune is blatant and extremely cheap sounding, she's flat way more times than she should, and the vocal mixing just has her way too loud to a song that's just distracting in many ways for me. It's once again a clear-cut case of shoestring budget shining through for an act with no backing or distinct elements to make them stand out, and of course, because dance radio is well behind in credibility or timeliness, this is on track to surge into the top 20 next week, and likely only last for 3 to 4 weeks on the charts overall. It's a recurring pattern and it's getting really annoying. So yeah, dance radio, please stop platforming crap like this. It makes you look worse, the song isn't good either, you can skip it like most people have. And then we've got Warm, which at least had a lot going on, but the 2 debuts we got were not particularly interesting. Seems to be the story on recent weeks for this chart. It's worrying me with how much filler is actually getting pushed here, and that's a shame because we actually got a new number 1 for Free Your Mind by Prosper and Clooney, which managed to beat out competition on here with a pretty damn good amount of spins. Honestly, the highest that we've gotten since this chart's been merged with Billboard, and I think it's really revealing that it's still on the rise up. This could have a major run at number 1. That would be very welcome, especially when its competition is Moving to the Sun by Hugo Lamella Angel and Alternate to number 2, which also jumped up pretty considerably into the 1,000 spin range alongside Free Your Mind, and my god, I really hope this gets held off of number 1. It would be a horrible look if it gets to the top. But more importantly, these both finally dethroned Talk to You by Another featuring 54 Ultra and number 3, and really I'm not surprised by this given that the momentum this song had pretty much died a couple of weeks ago, and really I'm just amazed that it got as huge as it did at all. This is amazing to see. It's probably going to be number 1 of the year and list at this rate, and as a result of all of these passing the 1,000 spin threshold, that means that Sad Girls by BB Rexha and David Guetta is just stranded at number 4 and has no real signs of actually sticking around, and thank god for that too. I did not need this to get any higher on Warm either. Then, as expected, and a huge surge off its debut last week, we've got Happiness Is So Sad by Swedish House Mafia and Leaky Lee at number 5, and honestly I'm kind of surprised the US hasn't jumped on board with this more. It's got a ton of upwards momentum. I can easily see this making a run and doing pretty damn well, and we'd all be better off for it. And thankfully that means that Satisfied by Calvin Harris and Jazzy just got booted down to number 6, and really I'm just amazed that this is still here at all. Outside of the UK, this song has utterly underperformed. Why are we still platforming it? Again, I can at least understand with On Tonight by Silver Bumper at number 7. It's a song that's actually doing well at the moment, even despite it being mediocre at best. And really, Silver Bumper is the name that I expect would actually do well on Warm to begin with, so this doesn't surprise me. But seriously, you could be platforming much better songs like Woman by Peggy Go and A-Star at number 8. A song that may not be doing as well on the charts globally, but is having consistent upwards momentum, and Peggy Go is a really well-liked name with a damn good song, so this actually gaining momentum, it makes sense, and it's welcome. Finally, we've got Serotonin by James Hype at number 9, which really I'm not sure how well this is going to last moving forward. It's already on its way out pretty naturally here. And New Religion by BB Rexha and Faithless at number 10. At this point, just rotate out of the top 10. It's getting really old now. We can move on from this. And on that note, our falls and fall-offs, and there's really not much to note in the latter category at all. Seriously, the only fall-off is Favor by Fisher and Tones and I. Weirdly, What a Life is not actually here to fill it in. That's utterly bizarre to me and a missed opportunity. But the crazy thing is that we actually only have 2 falls this week, and both are on opposite sides of the quality spectrum for me, with Meet Again by Cascade Leighton Giordani and Natalie Jane at 25 on the good side, and Get Away by Kungs and Boys Noise at 29 on the bad side. Both are likely to make the year-end list. Whatever at this point. But again, I think it's really telling that in the positive movements this week, we saw 2 returns for Repeated by Martin Garrix and Ed Sheeran at 39, and Sorry Puppy by Topic and Becky G at 40. Unfortunately, that latter one is actually gaining more actual traffic and streaming than I expected. Let's pray this does not last. And in our jumps this week, there's not really much to note at all being songs that hit the top 40 for the first time last week, and outside of Happiness Is So Sad in the top 5, we've got Good Girl by Clooney, Prosper, and Tristan Henry at 13, and Hey Everybody Back in the Dance by Coulter at 17. Both decent to good songs, not that bothered by these at all. However, we had several songs that I've actually already covered in the top 40 as jumps and debuts here, with both Feel Again by Sonny Fodera at 35 and Dance Tyria by Madonna at 36. Again, both decent songs, I'd be okay with these sticking around, but that leaves 2 more that actually did admittedly catch me off guard with how high they jumped, although neither are all that interesting. Starting on the better side with number 26, Everlasting by Armin van Buuren and SACHA.
And when I close my eyes, I think of you and find you never
Okay, can someone please explain to me what Armin's team is doing, shoveling out all these singles across random radio charts? Like a Child is doing legitimately well as a great track and is actually sticking around in the States, and yet instead of pushing that onto Warm, you go with the SACHA collab instead, especially when you already have No Mercy near the bottom of Warm, which is underperforming there. What kind of strategy you even try to do here? At this point, I'm starting to get a bit worried that Armin's getting a bit too intense in pushing out so many songs recently, especially with his last few albums being so overstuffed with material, it's almost ridiculous. Well, I can say this with the acknowledgement that this song is actually pretty great, but my point still stands here. It's a little bit weird to see this on the top 40 already. I mean, it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect from these two, going for a brand of straightforward, faster trance music with soaring melodies and some gorgeous atmosphere that SACHA absolutely nails with her vocal delivery here. She once again delivers as you'd expect. She's a really damn good singer, and while it is predictable, damn is that it sounds they nail so well, especially with the groove having more gallop and going full throttle with no filler moments. It's just over 2.5 minutes, pretty sharp in its length and content, and while nothing here is remotely revolutionary or interesting, you know what, considering how much Armin can completely go off the rails with his recent material, I'll at least take this. It's a great song, and I'm mostly okay with it being here. And finally, number 22, Careful by D.O.D and Izzy Bizu.
You know I adore you. No, I can't ignore you. Always take me higher. Out of my desire.
And on the opposite end of safe but reliable acts on radio, I'll be honest, I've just gotten really sick of this brand of plucky UK adjacent house music from acts like MK, Sonny Fodera, and especially D.O.D recently. These are not bad songs by any means, but quite frankly, the consistent lack of expanding outside of a reliable set of singers and collaborators, it just leads to material that, while fine for what it is, just gets really repetitive and mundane the more you listen to it. And at this point, where are the hooks that will actually draw people back in? Are people really still looking for these sorts of songs? They're getting really dime a dozen. And with this, I mean, I don't dislike the melodies here. There's some groove and energy to them, even if the vocal chops on the drops are getting smothered out by everything else. Seriously, the mix overall is a total mess here, where the chops are so hard to hear, especially surrounded by Izzy Bizu, once again disappointing me with her vocals, when she's going for this wailing tone that doesn't remotely fit with her delivery at all, especially when she sticks to her flat and mid-range otherwise. And seriously, why are you making use of that range from her? She's way better in her upper range. Songs like Forgive Me by Odessa absolutely prove it. This is a waste of your Izzy Bizu. And when her register is so stiff over a groove that's not distinct or memorable at all, it just has me wondering why radio is still platforming songs like this. Not terrible, but once again, I have to ask, why are we still pushing this to radio? Again, we can calm down with these new songs anytime now. This is getting really repetitive. All I'm saying. And that ends a week that was not particularly interesting, with the best easily going to Everlasting by Armin van Buuren and SACHA for at least doing the basics well, with the worst going to Perfume by Shab. Although that Isabella Francisco song was really close, that just gives off icky vibes that I don't particularly like. It was really close to tying with it at this point. Next week, I've got next to no idea what to expect at this point. Fred again might actually gain some more momentum, which could be definitely welcome, but otherwise, the charts are looking pretty quiet at the moment, and I really hope the quality actually rebounds and we get something surprising, because right now, this week didn't impress me, unfortunately. But yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.